Here we are, Whimsical Women of the World Week 6. I'm doing this, I can't even stand it, Middle Eastern woman today. Oh, it's fantastic. I tried to kind of nail down her actual ethnicity. I have a bunch of, well, I have one friend in particular who has a large Middle Eastern network. She helps Syrian refugee families settle in my area. She is friends with numerous Middle Eastern interpreters as well because of this. So I was trying to figure out her exact ethnicity. We weren't able to, but I said, she said she could be Syrian or Turkish. And I said, can I just say Middle Eastern? And she said, absolutely. So sorry, I don't have more specifics. And of course, there was no information where I found her on Pinterest, which is my love and hate for Pinterest. And its lack of, or the ease of, how it's so easy to lose sight of the original, like there's no information on the photographer or the model, and it's just a crying shame. So we're using her just as a reference. Of course, we're creating whimsical women, so we're not making it look exact. I always kind of try to do a good job, but I'm more interested in proportions and skin tones, shading, and highlights, and that's where my emphasis on these are. So we're not doing super realistic faces. We are doing whimsical faces, which gives you a lot of grace and helps you to not have to be so exacting, because that kind of leaches out the fun, at least it does for me. So we'll be basing it. Oh, I have something on my paper. Great. So we'll be using this as a reference and information only. And we are going to start like we always start with these faces, by making an oval. So I'm ignoring everything right now and I'm just focusing on making this oval. Now her hair is under here, and so there's a lot of volume under her head. Where, Habib? So it's her top of her head in reality is probably right around here. And then the rest is hair. And then she has 2 layers to her. The Kelly green on this just blows my mind. And so it's probably in here, and that's where the eye line is halfway through. So here is the halfway line for her eyes. No matter what nationality or ethnicity, the human face's basic proportions are the same. I have this on a guideline, actually. If you want my cheat sheet, I have this face guideline cheat sheet available for everyone for free. Just let me know in the comments if you want it. It has all these proportions on it. But we're going to do this horizontal line across the center. Then we split that in half, and that's the nose line. And we split that proportion in half, and that gives us the mouth lines. And then her neck is hidden under here. And with whimsical women, I always make the neck pretty small, but we actually end up getting lost in the folds of here anyways. So that's not an issue. My center line is really not in the center. Okay, so there we go. And then we're gonna do 3 eyes across the center. And that gives us our proportions. They should be about the same size. I like for my whimsical faces, the eyes end up being larger than if this was being like strictly realistic. But again, I like to do whimsical faces. It gives you a little bit more flexibility, room for interpretation and style, and honestly just takes the stress off of having to be perfect. That's really the biggest reason that I like drawing this way. Okay, so we have this kind of ghoulish proportions, but that's going to get us going in the right direction, believe it or not. I'm going to actually like solidify her face shape a little bit. So again, this is why references are so great. So she has this gorgeous strong mouth line, jawline, excuse me. It really turns the corner right under the lip. So actually it should be more like here. But again, it's like, who cares? It's just use it as influence and don't worry about being perfect. But you should have them match. Like this looks way different than that. So if you can get them to match up, that would be ideal. So it's more like that. And her cheekbones are literally to die for. Oh my gosh, I can't even stand how beautiful she is. It's like hurts to look at her. And this is like, sometimes my head has to get in the way because I have to like see down on my paper. It's really hard to see sometimes with the camera blocking my view. And then let's see, I'm even going to, come on camera, there we go. I'm even gonna sketch in her eyebrows a little tiny bit. So we have her eye and then her eyelid and then her eyebrows sit this way. And then this one is over here. And then the first layer, I want to make sure I have like an overall. So right about her eye line here is where her pink layer begins. And then the green is going to sit here. So we're going to have this wiggling this way. Does not have to be the same, just whatever folds. And then this curves like at the nose line, it kind of wings out and then it comes across this way down here and then it kind of folds this way. And then on this side, let's see, this again, starting from kind of this same right-hand side, we're gonna come up. And my groceries are here, so I need to stop the camera. Oof, this is like one of those days where the whole day goes by and I'm not done yet. I'm gonna go up and around, and we're gonna come down. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay, I can help bring them in, but I gotta go to a meeting. Yeah, I'm just middle of recording. And this goes up, and then there's like another layer. Drawing fabric folds is super confusing, so I'm just kind of roughing it in. And then this comes out over here, and it actually comes off of the page. This fold comes down. We're gonna fine tune this later. I'm just sketching in the general areas, the general folds. This one comes down to her cheekbone here, and then it kind of wings out kind of like that, and then we can worry about all this stuff later, but that's like a general rough outline. And then we have kind of some folds coming this way and that way. So there's the whole kind of composition laid out on the page. All right, now we are ready to fine tune this gorgeous lady and her features. So I'm gonna start with her eyes, and here we go. I feel like this is still uneven, so it should be here and here. I have too many center lines, so now finding the middle is tricky. So here I'm gonna start with the tear ducts actually on either side. Before I do anything, and see if those skews my head for a second, I'm gonna just pop in here. They're quite rounded. And then I'm gonna come up and then down. And then we're gonna do the bottom, which is down and around. Okay, now this looks nothing like the other side. Now let me try to make them match. First I get them even. Step one. And then I'm gonna kick up, and then they come out a little bit, and then they come up, and down. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna, again, sketch in the nose lightly first. So let's see, I'm gonna do the base of the nose. Just the bottom. When I say base, I just mean the little bottom. And then I'm just kind of looking at the shape. So it kind of comes up like this. Oh, that's way too wide in the center. Let's try that again. So it's a little bit smaller in the middle. And is it, oh my gosh, my center line is really bugging me. Okay, I think that was about correct. So this again is very small. Here we go. Just doing the outline of the nose. Oh, I need a kitty that needs to come in. It's like Animal Crossing in here. We have a dog and a cat wants to come in, and then the dog needs to chase the cat. Circus. All right, so then I'm gonna just draw lightly this part of the nose, and then the rest is really gonna be handled in shadow, so I'm gonna leave that alone for right now. Then she's so beautiful. All right, we're gonna do these little fulcrum. Bless you, Maggie. And then the lip is this beautiful, bless you, this beautiful, kind of dip up here. And the top comes down. And then her lips are like just ever so slightly parted, just ever so slightly in the center. And then sweeps underneath like so. I'm just going to fine tune her eyebrows and her eyes. Let's get rid of some of this extraneous parts. Erase our guidelines. Lots of guidelines to erase. Okay, get all those taken care of. Oh man, more up here. It's important because when we go to color it, we don't want the markers to carry all the graphite around with us, which quite frequently happens. So kind of neatens things up. All right, back to the eyes. So she has a few lids going, meaning like skin folds or I guess wrinkles, but wrinkles makes it sound like a negative thing. It's just part of her eye. So we have the inside part of her eye, and then we have it's kind of white under. We call that the wet line. And then up on top here, she has fold 1 and then like fold 2. So there's quite a few. And then same thing on this side. We have just more definition, I guess would be the right word. Where's my little, well, I'll do this side first. And then we will shore up the eyebrows afterwards. We're gonna have this crease, and then there was a second crease. And then down here, there's this crease. And then the eyebrows, I'm gonna scoot over farther. So we'll go Goes around the corner of the face, and then this comes up. And we can raise up this part. Okay, that's one eyebrow. And then this side, it's funny how no one's eyebrows ever really match each other. I think that's, humans all have that in common. Eyebrows are funny little things, aren't they? I think so. So it goes this way and then up and then around the corner. And then I'm going to use my eye template. Now I'm looking at her pupils, her irises, which is the colored part. Excuse my head for a second. They really get cut off both top and bottom. So I'm going to make sure I kind of have them looking the same. That looks about the right size. So on to the coloring portion of the lesson. Again, I don't expect everyone to have the same materials as I do, the same marker collection that I do. So really want to encourage you to use what you have, but I will show you the whole process. And we really just go layer by layer, and I'm starting with a pretty light color. She's very light skinned. When I was asking about the ethnicity to my friend who had some experience with Middle Easterns, people, she was saying too that this woman could actually even be Italian. So, you know, the variation of skin tones varies widely. So I'm just using, this is Pink Flamingo, which is a pretty light pink, but it's you can either do skin of two ways. You can either start super light and then slowly add in the darker shadows, or you can do it in the reverse, where you start it in super dark and then you go all the way to light. So it's just less scary to start with the lighter shades, and then you can kind of take your time going gradually deeper and deeper, and that way it's kind of slow, it's less intimidating. So this is definitely the approach that I would recommend, and it probably holds true for water-soluble materials as well. If you like working with water-soluble markers or crayons or pencils, the layering system works exactly the same as this, where you start with one and then you progressively and slowly go deeper and darker into the shaded regions. I would suggest, if you do want to follow along, so just pause the video at every layer so you can see where I'm mapping out the shadows as we go. It's very deliberate, the places that I'm putting the shadow areas, and it's very easy to draw along with me, even with time lapse, if you want to just pause and then like catch up. So we get stuck in the ugly phase for quite a long time with markers, but just like in any medium, I've been talking about this with this entire series. When you come upon the ugly phase, simply welcome it into your world, because you know she's going to show up, and then just keep moving. And that's the only way to move past the ugly phase, is by keeping drawing, keep layering, and just keep going, and she will emerge on the other side. I promise you now. So I'm going into a deeper shades and using, doing a pinks and then combinations with peach. And then finally there is some grays, and I'm using some purple grays to really get the shadow effect that I want to. And it also tones down all the heat that's in those peachy and pink skin tones, and it evens it out and makes it a little bit more neutral. So as you can see too, I am adding in flip-flopping between shades of the skin tone, and then also adding in shades of a much more vibrant pink. And so like distributing the same shades from the mouth to around the eyes, and then adding it to the shading kind of gives it a more unified look. So I kind of pop it in all over the place if I introduce a new color. The eyes end up not being super realistic. I make them much more too like piercing blue than they need to be. I even tried to go back and put layers of gray over them a few times to tone them down, and they like just don't want to quit. So I don't think that's super indicative of this ethnicity, but they are beautiful, and she is beautiful and does have blue eyes nonetheless in real life. So Again, I'm chalking it up to the whimsicality of this piece and just enjoying the process big time. I did it the first time doing this technique with the eyebrow where I just put down like a base coat color. And then I go back and draw the individual hairs in a darker tone on top. And I really liked the way that that came out. So I think I'm going to carry that through to the next project. I'm really trying to look at the photograph and recreate the little nuances that I see. So in her upper lip, it's shaded. And then the bottom lip, there's a lot more going on. It's like dark at the corners, and then it's dark on the inside, and then there's these lip lines. So I'm just doing my best to try to keep up and catch up and make a good representation of what I'm seeing with my eyes down on my paper. Now, color pencils is kind of where the magic happens when you're using alcohol markers. Weird, I know, right? Because it's a different medium. But what happens is that you can do all of your kind of fixing with just a little bit of colored pencil work. So if there's a transition area between one skin tone and another, you can use your colored pencil to kind of bridge the gap and ease those transitions. It's the best kind of description that I can come up with. You're easing those transitions. So sometimes it's just so like jarring between a highlight and a shadow, or a light spot and a dark spot. So you can just take your colored pencil and just super lightly sketch in between that areas, and it kind of just like segues them together in a really cool place. What's also cool about using colored pencils with alcohol marker drawings is that you can switch back and forth really quickly and easily. So like I put down some colored pencil and then I'm like, okay, this still needs to come together more. So now I'm going back to a light alcohol marker color and kind of putting that all over her face. And that helps blend every layer that I have up until that point. Like it helps blend everything together super well. And you can keep alternating between the colored pencils and the alcohol markers, kind of back and forth until finally you're able to like bust through that dreaded ugly phase and move on with the project. My favorite thing about using colored pencils too is using the white, because you can take these great highlighted areas and produce a really soft glowing effect, but just by sketching out a large area using your white colored pencil. Super easy, fast, and effective. Where's my white paint marker? Let's see, her highlights in these eyes are at the top. And then her nose kind of has like this on this one side to it. Cool. And then maybe there's one. Oh yeah, we didn't even finish up her mouth. She definitely has some highlights at the top of her lip. On this side. And then also like all along her bottom lip is the whole thing pretty much is highlighted. As well as here. And then even like along her bottom eyelids, she does as well. All right, so I really like feel strongly that I need to move on with my life. Then that being said, I'm like obsessed with her. I want to just keep futzing, I think because I'm just having a good time. Does that ever happen to you? You know, it's just like lovely to spend time with a lovely person. So I want to keep going and never have it end. Weirdo. So yeah, I don't think we can do too much. I need to stop. But I'm just really enjoying this project. Like way too much. Okay, so you should see the heap of markers that I have next to me. I do feel like the whole thing could be like, I could keep kind of adding darker shades. I don't know where that just went. Oh yeah, this is brick beige. Like I feel like I could keep going on all of this forever. because I don't think even with all those layers, like I didn't have the right side of the face as deep as it is in the reference photo. So that would kind of justify going over this a few more times, but I do feel like I need to also move on with the rest of the project. Yes, I do, even though I don't want to, because I want to hang out with her skin all day. You know, as you just heard me say, like, I just didn't want to stop spending time with her. She was so beautiful, and watching her come to life before my eyes was just such a pleasure. It's like once I finish one of these whimsical women drawings, I want to go right back to my studio and make another one, like, not do anything else, which is why I'm kind of punting a lot of things in my life right now to get this series done, because I just, out of pure passion, I'm having such a great time. And also seeing your work that you're creating from this series is the most satisfying thing. In case you don't know, there's also a book coming out of this, and I'm actually featuring my students' work in the book. This is how excited I am about this whole project. So as you can see, coloring in or Shayla, it's called, is super easy and fun. We're using, again, a combination of the alcohol markers, and the Copics, and a little
I don't know what that little black spot was, and the colored pencils, but it's very, very straightforward. So we're doing straight up pink for her cap that she's wearing, and then I'm going in with gray to produce the shadow lines, and then I'm just using a little bit of white colored pencil on top to create like a highlighted area. And if you notice too, just like I mentioned before, as soon as you start introducing new colors, like I have a lot of gray for the shading, I go and sprinkle that around the rest of the project. So then I also put it along the side of the face and on the neck. And again, when you're repeating your colors throughout your piece, you're creating a lovely unified composition by working that way. So it's like a fail-safe way to just have a piece that comes together. So now doing her Shayla on top is actually super fun. So I'm doing the whole entire piece just in one green. This is acid green, and just the most beautiful color in the whole world, in my humble opinion. And I'm doing the whole thing. And the thing is, remember with Copics, you need to move very quickly. That helps reduce the streaking. And then you can always go back and do a second coat. I actually ended up not even doing a second coat. I was so pleased with the way it turned out. And then I'm very carefully going back in with a darker shade, which is called Moss, and drawing in the shadows that I see from the photo. So you just use your photo or whatever you're using for a reference to help you figure out where those darks and lights are, and then just do your best to really just draw them in. And then I'm also using a pretty dark gray, this is an N7, to create, we have to have this real dramatic shading in there. So I wasn't sure about doing the green base, but I'm glad that I did, because it made the shadow areas look like they made sense. So I went ahead, and anywhere that, again, I saw shading on the reference is where I tried to draw the shading on my own drawing. So, but what's cool is that having that deep dark shadow around her face really makes her face like pop out of her head scarf, excuse me, of her head scarf. And then also I went back and actually added an even deeper shading like around her neck and the areas very much closest to her face. But again, it's the same thing when you're drawing hair, and having the pieces that are closest to the face be the darkest, because they genuinely are in shadow, but they also make that face come outwards, and like the light is like shining upon their beautiful skin. So such a cool exercise. Never done a headpiece like this. It was really, I was so tickled the way it turned out. And then again, as the final piece, I went around and popped in that deep, deep dark shading everywhere that I saw it again on my photograph. And then I actually take my pencil pocket brush, which is the same one I always use for eyelashes. It's the same tool I use to highlight or go around her whole face. And then I end up outlining the entire piece with that. And I think it really brought everything together. If you want to catch up on the other episodes, then go ahead and click the button and you can watch that and get caught up right away.